First, I want to start with Mr. Tallier, the supervisor from Forest County. Um, you're a former U.S. Forest Service employee, is that correct?
Yes, it is. I put in 20-plus years, plus my wife put in 25. So, yeah, we've been involved with the Forest Service a long time.
So you see this within this project, this 14 acres that is contiguous with the existing aggregate pit that is there. You see it within the context of Forest County being a county supervisor as well as being a former Forest Service employee. You see it through all of those perspectives. Is that accurate?
Accurate. I thank you for that because this whole thing it really is common sense. It's a hill, it's right there by the existing pit and 14 acres, and I'm not sure, what the Forest Service plan it would be to do with just that 14 acres. So it just seems to me that it's common sense to get rid of it and let economic development continue in Forest County.
So having this 14 acres go to be able to produce aggregate, it doesn't jeopardize any of the operations or any of the goals that the Forest Service has with their hundreds of thousands of acres. Is that accurate?
To me, it's nothing. So.
And if this goes away, let's say this ready mix operation went away. What would be the impact to the local community, including for public projects? So you have the U.S. Forest Service, they conduct projects occasionally, right? You have the Forest County Potawatomi that are right there with operations right in that immediate area in Wabeno. What happens to the cost of construction if this does not?
Well, the thing is about this ready mix plant, you have to go like 50 miles away. If this closes down, then the next one is probably 50 miles to the south, 40 miles to the southwest, and then there's another one 25 miles north. So, you're talking a major impact.
If I recall accurately, they'd be getting their aggregate or their concrete at that point from either Eagle River, Rhinelander, Anago, places that are a long ways away.
Long ways.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And so it's really important that we keep this company going where it's at. Everything is in place. And, probably and I don't know these exact numbers, but, when you deal with this many employees and this many trucks coming in and out, different small businesses, it could be over $1 million a year as far as the investment everybody's around the area. You know what I'm saying? So it's really important that we keep this business going.
Yeah, I would emphasize, while we certainly have the private sector, I just think of these public sector projects that they want to complete. It will cost more to complete them if we do not have a source of concrete, a source of aggregate like that. Ms. Downey, I want to ask a very specific question. I know you guys work with sportsmen's organizations, and that is really a big part of America is the opportunity for sportsmen. And when it comes to corner crossings, it's my understanding that you guys have done a lot of work where you have this checkerboard of public and private lands. Could you please explain this issue with corner crossings and how legislation that streamlined parts of the land conveyance process, such as Representative Lee's bill, could assist in opening up access?
Chairman Tiffany, in the West, we have a unique situation, as you've described, called the checkerboarded land situation, wherein, similar to a checkerboard, you have public parcels of land, largely federal land, where they touch at a corner, but not along the edge. So imagine a checkerboard, part of it is public, part of it is private. So the question begins as sportsmen, recreationists, conservationists want to be able to expand their access to those public lands. How do you get from one piece of public across the corner to another piece of public? One side of the argument sees it as public access. The other side sees it as crossing that line, trespassing on private property. So it's a really complicated land jurisdictional issue. So pieces like improving the appraisal process so that we can try and negotiate exchanges or to facilitate access agreements so that we're respecting property rights while still promoting access are going to be really important and help solve a big Western access issue.
Appreciate that. Ms. Adamatis, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, well, I will say that by expanding by this ACE Act, it will help speed up the ability for them to get appraisals in these instances where they need appraisals on access.
It goes back to the fundamental issue of the bill that's before us, is that right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, for sure. Ms. Roman, in the district that you chair, what is your official title again, once again?
General manager.
General manager, that you operate. Is there water used in that area for the ski resorts and things? What is the water all used that you manage? What is it used for?
The water that we manage is mostly used for domestic and outdoor irrigation. But of course, you can imagine Town of Vail, when it was developed, it was largely developed by the ski resorts. You know, it all was around the same time. But our water is largely used for outdoor irrigation and for drinking. And then we also treat the water and return clean water back to the streams.
Okay, and it does help you provide to your constituents to have more water storage. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah, because it sounds like it's a somewhat complex issue that is before us in regards to the Bolts Ditch.
I think what's before you is probably very simple, but water in the West is very complex.
Always this, us Midwesterners, when we come to Congress and deal with natural resources, we find that out real fast. So finally, Mr. Muncy, I'd just like to, based on your testimony, it sounds like these issues before us that we're talking about today, it's life and death issues, is that right?
Yes, sir. I also want to point out again is that not only life and death with wildfire or secondary emergencies, but as your all-hazard fire department responding to federal land, these are often things like all-terrain vehicles, people riding horses, lost hikers, people going into mine shafts, and being able to access these individuals quickly can very likely lead to life to death.
Do you folks try to prevent fires or try to stop fires before they spread?
Yes, sir. As I mentioned, we respond to 196,000 calls for service last year. Again, those are considered failures. While we're really good at responding, our primary job is to prevent. In our local jurisdiction, I have my Division Chief of Wildland behind me. His wildland crews spend hours in and around our communities with community chipper days, cutting fire breaks, doing inspections on private homes, but there's a great deal of effort that's expended by the local government to keep our communities safe.
So per what we're talking about here today, what is stopping you from preventing some of those fires?
Well, as we mentioned, it's not just fires. It is the all-hazard nature that's going to occur on federal land. But I would say here's where we've improved in the last couple of years. CAL FIRE, the U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BLM have all been working a lot closer with County Fire to ensure that the efforts that we're putting in are congruent. A few years ago, we'd see a patchwork quilt where maybe the Forest Service would take a project that was in the middle of the forest, and then our County Fire would take a project that's in the county areas. We weren't working together, and I think that's continued to move that forward. The second is to continue to fund these projects. The third, and I want to emphasize this, and I know it's not in this committee's purview, you need to pay your federal firefighters. There has been a massive loss of experience from individuals that are going to work anywhere but the U.S. Forest Service. CAL FIRE is hiring many of them. In Congresswoman Kim's area in the Cleveland National Forest, 25% of the stations, 25% of the time are staffed. If you don't have that workforce in place, then it's really hard for the federal government to do its part in maintaining these fuel breaks and working with local agencies to prevent these fires.
So the burden ends up falling on you. And departments like yours. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. As I mentioned, about $13 million is spent from local taxpayers to respond. There's much more money that's spent from us to protect our communities, which is our responsibility. We also use our hand crews to augment the federal hand crews on their projects for free, because we know that if we can minimize the impact of fire in the natural resources, then we can keep that from going into our communities.
So we've had organizations in this country, well-known organizations that have fought tooth and nail to prevent access, and as a result, maybe they didn't do it intentionally, but the ultimate result was that we've had these massive fires as a result of not taking the proper approach to it. Is that turning in the West?
Not from my perspective, sir. I think everybody's intentions are correct, and they want to be environmentally friendly, and they want to protect our natural resources, and I can certainly align with those viewpoints. However, we need to make sure that we're doing our half to make sure that our first responders can access these emergencies quickly. I would also take note that these individuals that complain, say, about maintaining a room through the forest, the moment their cell phone's not working, they're going to be calling your office and every elected official's office complaining about it. Literally, as I recounted a story in our snowstorm where we could not access the repeaters, the utilities went out and 40,000 people were without utilities. We had to fuel those generators, but we couldn't make access on the road. So those things need to stop in order to protect the public and make sure that they're able to access needed service.
Take me back one more time. What prevented access to that road in the situation that you just highlighted?
Maintenance. That road had not been maintained for years. Again, the U.S. Forest Service is now working with San Bernardino County Fire. We are putting our heavy equipment and our crews working with our department that maintains a repeater on top of one of the mountain in order to be able to repair that road. The U.S. Forest Service has been great at getting us the supplies we need to maintain it and getting the CEs to do it. But for years leading up to that, that road had not been maintained. We could not even drive it in a tracked vehicle, a snowcat, to get up there because of the maintenance and the rock slides that had occurred on that particular roadway.